Hi, I'm George Maestri, and today we're going to take a look at dynamics. We're going to create a rope and pulley system using nHair, and it's going to look something like this. So this can create a very realistic effect, as you can see, and it's actually pretty easy to set up. So we're going to be using nHair as well as cloth and dynamics to make this work. So let's go ahead and get started. So I have my blank pulley and my objects in this scene. And as you can see, it's a very simple scene. We have a ground plane, the pulley, a bracket, a little sphere, and the weight. So let's go ahead and start off by drawing a curve which will become our rope. So I'm going to go into a side view here. And I'm just going to create a CV curve. And so I'm going to start here at the top of the weight and then just draw basically a straight line almost up to the pulley and then kind of get that a line going around the pulley and then just stretch it out to that sphere. Now I just want to make sure that this is all in place, okay? And if we want, we can go in and use our modeling tools here to just kind of adjust our CVs and that sort of thing. Now I'm really not drawing a whole lot of detail here, but I am going to need more detail when I actually go to the simulation. So I'm going to go ahead and select this curve, and then we're going to add more detail by rebuilding it. So all I have to do is just increase the number of spans. Let's go ahead and just make it a big number. I'm going to make it 100 and rebuild that. So now when we go to control vertex, you can see we have 100 CVs, and this will make for a very nice realistic simulation. So I'm going to go back to object mode now. Now once we have this drawn, we can start our simulation by turning this into an nHair. So I'm going to go into my FX menu, and under nHair, I'm going to say Make Selected Curves Dynamic. And when I do that, and I hit play, notice how that becomes kind of a dynamic curve here. In fact, I'm going to change my playback settings. I have it for play every frame. Let's go ahead and play it real time for now. And go ahead and hit play. And as you can see, this creates a very realistic sort of simulation. But we want this to collide with things. So I want it to collide with that pulley. So I need to select that pulley. And under nCloth, we're going to do Create Passive Collider. And when I do that, it now hangs off of that pulley. And we can also make that bracket a passive collider, just in case, so it doesn't slip over the top. And if we want to, we can also make the ground a passive collider. So none of these things are going to move, and they're going to be collided with. So now that we have this, you can see how we've got kind of a very realistic hang for that hair or that curve. Now, once we have this, we can actually take our original curve, select it, and just hide it by doing Control H or Display Hide Selection. So now that we've got this, one of the things we're going to have to do is we need to kind of free this up so that it doesn't stick on both ends. We're going to re-stick it later, but right now, let's go ahead and select that curve, go into our attribute editor, and under follicle shape, we have a thing here called point lock. Right now it's locked on both ends, which is pretty obvious, but we want this to be no attach. And when we do that, what it does is it basically frees up the ends, and now this is just a free piece of string. And as you can see, we've got a pretty realistic simulation here. I'm going to go ahead and put that up to 200 so we can see the end of that. And so as you can see, it's a very realistic simulation. Our pulleys and our floor are working great. But we need to attach this to another object. We need to get the sphere and the weight involved. So we can do that by using what's called a constraint. So I'm going to start with the sphere. I'm going to select my curve, right-click over it, go into Control Vertex, kind of zoom in a little bit, and just select those CVs right at the very end. And then I'm going to shift select that sphere. And then under End Constraint, I'm going to constrain point to surface. So I'm going to create that constraint. And now when we play this back, you can see how now it's kind of stuck to that sphere. And that's great. Now we can do the same thing on the other end, but on the other end, we want that weight to actually be free and subject to the laws of physics. So we need to actually turn this into a dynamic object. And we can do that using cloth. So I'm going to select this weight, and under End Cloth, I'm going to select Create End Cloth. Now that brings us to the end cloth shape. And under that, we've got all of these different dynamic properties and all that. But probably the easiest way to do it is just to hop over to the presets. If I left click on this presets, you can see all of these different types of presets. And the one I'm going to use is solid rubber. So I'm just going to do solid rubber replace. And what that does is it just makes this kind of a hard, solid object. So now when I do my simulation by playing it back, and there we go. So now you can see that when it starts off, you can see how it kind of just falls down and bounces. And that's great. So now all we have to do is connect this curve to this object. So I'm going to go ahead and right click over that, go into Control Vertex, select some of these vertices towards the end, select the weight, and then do another point to surface constraint. Now that we have this, everything is now connected. But one of the things that I'm seeing here is that this rope, or whatever that is kind of a little stretchy. And so let's go ahead and tighten that up, make it more of a rope. So I'm going to go ahead and select this, go to Hair System Shape, and under Dynamic Properties, we've got a lot of properties here. The one I'm really looking for is Stretch Resistance. So let's put that way high. Let's put that up to about 500. And then under Bend Resistance, let's put that to about 50. So what this will do is make it a lot stiffer. So it won't stretch and it won't bend. So a little bit more like a cable rather than a stretchy rope. And as you can see, that the quality of that just changes almost immediately when I do that. So now that I have all of this in place, we can actually start to animate our simulation. So I'm going to go ahead and take this sphere, and I'm going to set a keyframe at frame 1. And then let's go forward a little bit, say at about frame 30, and set another one. Then I'm going to go pretty far forward. Let's go forward about 70 or 80 frames. I'm going to go to 110. And then just move that back and set another key. So now we've got this sphere animating. And watch what happens when this animates. It's actually going to go ahead and pull that weight all the way up. Now, if we want, we can animate it again. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a little pause here. So at 130, I'm going to set another key and then go maybe another 30 frames out and just move that back a little bit and set another key. In fact, just to see this, I'm going to go ahead and change my total length to about 250. So let's go ahead and see this. So now we've got this pulling up the weight and dropping it. And as you can see, we get a very realistic simulation. And we can play with this as much as we want. Now, the thing is that this is still a curve. So let's go ahead and change this into actually a rope, just using some modeling tools. So I'm going to go into Modeling. From the top view, I'm going to basically just create a circle. So I'm going to go Curve Surfaces, select my circle, move that into place. Actually, I'm going to scale that down quite a bit. And let's go into perspective mode here. And so this is going to be the outline of my rope, and the other one is going to be an extrude. So I'm going to keep my circle selected, highlight the curve, that's the rope, and under surfaces, we're going to do extrude. And there we go. That extrudes it as a rope. That does not look exactly right, but what we can do is we can change this to fixed path and component pivot, and that should work. Now I'm in the attribute editor for that. So now you can see that I've got a rope that's pulling this, and there we go. So we can tweak all of these values and make it a little bit smoother, but hopefully you've got the basic idea of how to create an effect like this.